I will speak in a language that many of you may not appreciate. English is okay? Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations and thank you to Jack and Yves Rocher for reaching this 50 million mark. In my own way, trying to perceive a little bit of French since morning. I didn't get all of it, but they filled me up a little bit with bits and pieces. So the science of it is undeniable, there's no question. Well, people make art out of it, music out of it, romance out of it, many things. Essentially, if you pay attention, it's just simple sense that everybody should know. It doesn't need a scientist to convince us. Today, it has become necessary in the world for the scientists to speak for this, unfortunately, because most people have lost that sense. It has to come in a textbook form, that trees are related to you, otherwise people will think it is not so. I must tell you this. I didn't go to school much, okay. I was supposed to go to school, but on the way the trees stopped me. So I was equipped with a bicycle, the lunch box. I thought I was good for the day and I went up a tree and sat. Morning 9 o'clock if I went and sat on a tree, till 4 in the evening. Only thing is I didn't have a watch. I would be looking out, if I saw the school kids going back home, I know it's time to go home. So the entire day I sat there, I had my lunch there. And I started closing my eyes without knowing why. Sitting on the topmost branch of the tree, just gently waving, I would just become ecstatic without knowing why. It's many years later, when I started meditating, I realized that unconsciously I was becoming meditative sitting on a branch of the tree. So it almost became addictive to me. If I see a tree, I have to climb up and sit. After, almost 7 or 8 years ago, after 27 years, I went back to the town where I grew up. I've been going back to see my family, but never went there to teach or do any programs there. All over the country I was doing, but I avoided this one town because I wanted to keep it private. When I visit the family, I didn't want to be recognized all over the place. But it became inevitable that I have to do an event. So I started a 2-day event. And it was very nostalgic because right from my kindergarten school friends, teachers from my school, college, all kinds of people who knew me, they all came. After completing the event, when I was just getting off, my English teacher who had taught me the language some, 4 decades ago, she came up and hugged me and she said, "Now I understand why you wouldn't let me teach Robert Frost." I said, "Ma'am, why would I not let you teach Robert Frost? I like Robert Frost. I've even been to his birthplace, I have poetry recited in his own voice. Why would I not let you teach Frost?" She said, "Don't you remember?" And she reminded me. It happened that she just walked into the classroom one day and she introduced this American poet, and then she started off the first poem. "Woods are lovely, dark and deep." I said, "Stop." I said, "A man who calls a tree a wood, I don't want to listen to that guy." She said, No, Robert Frost is a great poet." I said, "I don't care who he is. A man who calls a tree a wood, I will not listen to that guy." I didn't let her teach. So many years later, almost 4 decades later, she remembered that and she was telling me. So my relationship with trees is not because of this or that, if you… there is a certain dimension of yoga where we are talking about by bringing the body to a certain level of relaxation, not by controlling it, but by bringing it to a certain dimension of relaxation, the number of breaths that you take per minute will go down. Normally, we're taking 12 to 15 breaths per minute. If it goes down to 12, then you know the language of your body. Everything that happens in your body you know, simply because the static in your mind has gone down. If your breath goes down to 9 per minute, you know the language of the birds, animals, trees and every other living thing on the planet. If your breath goes down to 6, you know the language of the inanimate. If your breath goes down to 3, then you know the language of the entire universe. It simply means that your listening ability, like our friend, I'm sorry, Mr. Hall, he's got instruments. Because I didn't have instruments, I just sat for hours and days and listen and listen and listen, not wanting to listen. But it's invariable, it's bound to happen. If you become quiet within yourself, the entire universe speaks to you in a million different ways, and trees are a dominant force in that. This tree planting, our association with Yves Rocher is for last 6 or 7 years. But this tree planting thing started… we had just moved into our yoga center in 1993. There were only 3 trees and one of them had been pushed down by elephants, and it was… even today we have… this is called as the leaning tree of Isha because it's leaning like this because the elephants walked on it. So we decided we'll plant around 3,000 different flowering trees in the yoga center. So this process was going on. It was in the rainy season, when the monsoon time, everything looks fantastic and green in southern India. But when the summer came the next year, when I looked at the mountains, we are at the foothills of a mountain which is supposed to be a rainforest. I saw the entire mountain remained green. Only one hill next to the yoga center would turn brown because a furniture industry illegally had cut all the trees on this particular hill. Then I said, just planting trees in the yoga center is not good enough, we need to plant the hill. They looked at the hill and said, Sadhguru, how to plant in this hill? So we devised a simple method, I don't want to go into the detail, a simple and effective method where the sprouting on the hill was over 90% in spite of the animal movement. Today if you come, you will see the entire hill is green. At that time when the summer came, our temperatures in the yoga center used to be 3 to 4 degrees higher than the city. Today if you come, you will see it is at least 3 degrees lower than the city and it remains green in summer, and all the trees on this mountain are just about 18 to 20 years old. This we did in a matter of 3 days with a few thousand volunteers. All we had to do is create a song for it and provide them 2 meals a day. And in 3 days' time, they planted up this entire hillside and it turned green. Encouraged by this, we were looking at what to do next. But then, at that time in the year 1998, certain experts from United Nations came and they made a prediction. Tamil Nadu, which is the southernmost state in India, of the Indian peninsula, they made a prediction by 2025, 60% of Tamil Nadu will be a desert. Tamil Nadu is probably the only place on the planet which has a 12,000-year history of agriculture. For 12,000 years, they've been plowing the same land. And it has been nourishing us, but in 1 generation, it's going to turn into a desert. I didn't like the idea, First of all, I don't like any predictions because predictions are cold statistics. Predictions never take into account what is beating in a human heart and what are the human aspirations around it. Then I did not believe this, I wanted to travel and see myself, so I drove around Tamil Nadu for a week. Then I knew their prediction is wrong. I did not think it'll go up to 2025. I thought it'll happen much sooner because in northern Tamil Nadu, 3 perennial rivers had vanished in a matter of 15 years' time. Rivers which have been there for probably 1,000,000 years are gone, entirely gone. People built homes in the riverbeds. So when I saw this, I thought this is far more alarming than the predictions they're making. So, what is the solution? You want to complain, you want to start a protest, you want to talk to the government, these are endless things which may happen, which may not happen. So I said, we made a simple barefoot calculation. And that day, Tamil Nadu's green cover was 16.5%. The national aspiration is 33%. So I said, if we want to make this into 33%, we made a simple barefoot calculation, 1 tree in 10 years' time, what is the amount of shade it will create. Shade is important because at one time, before we started exploiting this, the entire planet, except the water bodies, were all in shade generally, almost the entire planet, except a few peaks, mountain peaks and stuff. But today, very little of the planet is under shade. We're talking about global warming or the climate change, we're only thinking about the carbon and this and that, but the most important thing is there is no shade on the planet. The earth needs shade. If biodiversity has to happen at the most basic level, only under shade this will happen, not when it's under burning sun. So we thought we'll create this shade and I said 114 million trees if we plant. In the next 8 years, in the next 15 to 20 years, we'll have 33% green cover. When I called a group of volunteers, about 4,000 to 5,000 people, and I told them we need to plant 114 million trees, their eyeballs rolled. They said, Sadhguru, do you know what is that number? I said, I know the number. They said, it's impossible. Who can plant 114 million trees? Then I asked them, what's your population? The state's population is 62 million people. I said, if all of us plant 1 tree today, take care of it for 2 years and plant 1 more, we got the number. The only problem is, all of us are using everything, but all of us are not compensating for what we need to do. I said, the only thing that is necessary is we have to involve the entire population. It's not me doing it or you doing it, one organization doing it, government doing it, this is not the thing. If we involve the entire population in making this happen, this is not even a great thing to do, it's a simple thing. Who cannot plant 1 tree? Even a beggar on the street can plant a tree. So we started this, and first 6 years I spent planting trees in people's minds. Believe me, this is the hardest terrain. Once you have successfully put trees in their minds, now transplanting it onto the planet is very easy because earth is tree-friendly. It is only the human mind which is not tree-friendly. Earth is very tree-friendly. So now the project since 2006 or 2004 is only transplanting from people's heads, which is already deeply rooted in everybody's minds, now transplanting it to the soil, which is happening effortlessly. Till date, I think we planted around 27 million trees and the green cover in the state has changed. Official figures are 7.2%. The Google Maps are showing 11% increase in green cover. This is not even a full-time job for us. This is something that we're doing on the side and many people have helped us. Yves Rocher has been one of our main partners in making this happen. Many other individuals, volunteers in millions are a part of this. So as a part of this, to set some kind of a momentum to this, we kind of try to break some records and we planted some 852,000 trees in a single day. 250,000 volunteers. In military precision, from morning 8 to evening 5, they planted 852,000 trees, which is a Guinness record even today. These things have happened because we managed to involve the people. I think this is the most important element. It is not about individual organizations or governments doing things. The most important thing is to get the larger population involved, especially if we are doing projects in countries where there is a population pressure, there is economic depravity. It's extremely important people are involved in this, otherwise you plant it, they will remove it. If it becomes this big a stick, somebody is going to cut it and use it for something, because there is a dearth for everything. So this movement has picked up so much momentum now that okay, this and that awards and whatever things have happened, that's not the important thing. The culture of the place has changed. Today, we have green school movements where a few 100,000 children are involved in making this happen. We're trying to bring a pet system, that is, instead of having a dog or a cat as a pet and every 10, 11 years you have a heartbreak, instead of that you have a tree as a pet. And it grows bigger than you and it'll live beyond you. You don't have to have heartbreak and you can be buried under the tree or you can get enlightened under the tree, we don't know what'll happen. So, this movement has picked up so much momentum and gotten national attention now there in India. But the most important thing is the involvement of the people. Because this involvement was brought forth, because we were already a non-religious spiritual movement. The first day, when I went to talk to people about the Project GreenHands, I made them assemble, this was around 11 o'clock in the morning, about 4,000 to 5,000 people were there and I made them sit in the sun. There were trees around, but I made them assemble in hot sun. It's one thing if you're walking around or moving, but just to sit in the hot sun in tropical climate is difficult. So I started talking to them so many things. I wanted the time to tick, so I just was talking about many things. They were all sitting there slowly wilting away. What's wrong with Sadhguru? When the trees are there, why are we sitting here in the sun? So I waited for them to really feel the heat of the sun. Then I said, okay, let's go under the tree. And when we go under the tree, I mean, maybe in Europe you won't feel it so much. In a tropical climate, you be in the sun for 2 hours and then go under a tree, it feels like heaven. They all, they're sitting like this under the tree. I said, this is it. So just see, being under a tree, how it feels. And is there enough trees for all of us? Is there enough trees for the children that you're rearing right now? Do you have enough trees? And I made them sit down there and do one simple meditation where I told them to just feel this, just sit down and just see this. What you exhale, the trees are inhaling. What the trees exhale, you're inhaling. You can live without your father, you can live without your mother, you can live without your wife or children, but you can't live without a tree. This relationship is on all the time. If you break the relationship, you're dead. So, what you exhale, they're inhaling. What they exhale, we're inhaling. This exchange, this constant relationship is always on. It is just a question of your insensitivity or your sensitivity to it. If you had paid attention, you did not need any teaching. You did not need any moment to tell you plant a tree. If you just paid little more attention, not to the tree, to your life. If you pay attention to this life, you would know the relationship and you would know this is not some kind of a solid state, it is in constant interrelationship with every life, but particularly with trees, the relationship is very stark and direct. So once we brought this experience to people, there is no stopping them. The most beautiful thing about Project GreenHands is the farmers Indian farmers' situation is not great. You may be hearing this. Every year, thousands of them are committing suicide, not being able to sustain their lives. But these farmers who own such tiny pieces of land, it's very small holdings, because over many thousands of years or hundreds of years, land has been divided and subdivided among children and grandchildren, and now what they have is very, very little. To make a living out of that is very tough. But in this, I brought about this and said, you must plant 10% of your land as trees. And what they have done brings tears to my eyes, because they're daily struggling. They don't understand what is climate change, what is global warming, this, that. But they understand this much: what they exhale, trees inhale, what the trees exhale, they inhale. From this understanding of life, they have dedicated 10% of their land to plant trees. We're trying to make it economically worthwhile for them, but it is not yet much so. We've been trying to shift from regular forest trees, we're planting around 108 different varieties or species of trees, but now we are trying to shift to fruit trees so that more food will come out of fruit, out of trees, rather than crops for which you have to plow the land and destroy the land in so many different ways. That has not yet happened because a fruit tree costs almost 10 times more than a forest tree that we produce. We're collecting seeds from the forest and planting in nurseries and growing them, which is not costing us much. But if we have to do fruit trees, then they have to be grafted and stone grafted, and all these things will make it almost 10 times more expensive. But I feel the next step, we have to do this. If this movement has to be really successful, we have to do this, that more food should come out of trees than the crops which come and go every 3 months. If we successfully do this in the world, that at least 50% of our food will come from the trees. If we do this, then we don't have to encourage anybody to plant trees, they will anyway plant trees. This is an important step that we need to take. If all of you tree lovers here, this is an important thing that needs to happen, that at least 50% of human food that we consume, if it starts coming from the trees, protecting the tree will be very easy. Right now, most people are thinking, it's very common in… whether in UK or particularly in United States, to refer to a tree as a wood. I keep on correcting them wherever they go, it's not wood. The moment you see life-making material as a commodity, you have committed a sacrilege against life, your own life. We think tree is a commodity, air is a commodity, water is commodity, food is commodity. No, these are all life-making material. If you do not know how to treat the life-making material which goes into you and becomes your body, if you do not know, you will never know life in its full depth and dimension. It doesn't matter what you have, what kind of comfort you have, you will not know the joy of living. You will not know one moment of ease, because today there is substantial scientific evidence to show this. In the yogic system, there are many, many ways to say this, but today we know water has memory, food has memory, how you treat it. Every thought, every emotion that you generate changes the molecular structure of the water. So how you treat life-making material, including the air that you breathe, determines the quality of your life. So this is not about trees, this is about life. And one most important thing is, we're doing many things, planting trees, doing this, doing all kinds of band-aid things, but the most important thing is, we have to reduce the human footprint on the planet. Right now, we are some 7.2 or 7.3 billion people. The prediction for 2050 by the United Nations organization is that we will be 9.7 billion people. What this means is, by 2050, all of us will have 40% less resource than what we are enjoying right now. When I say resource, I'm not talking about oil or gold or diamond or something. I'm talking about the water that we drink, the air that we breathe and the food that we eat. If we have to understand what it is, right now you're taking about 15 breaths per minute. Take 40% less number of breaths. Just try to live with 10 breaths a minute, just see how it'll feel. This is how our children will feel on this planet. It doesn't matter what technologies we create, it doesn't matter what wealth we create, it doesn't matter what all education we have, but we are ensuring that future generations cannot live in any sensible way. Simply, the biggest problem, we may think there are so many problems, there's only one problem. This is, at the beginning of 20th century, we were just 1.5 billion people. In a little over 100 years, 110 years, we are 7.2 billion people. In another 35 years, in another 35 years, we are going to be nearly 10 billion people. If we do not reduce the human footprint, there is really no solution. Everything else is only delaying the disaster. We're trying to delay the disaster. If you want to avert the disaster, human societies have to plan, but by 2050, instead of being 9.7 billion, let's aim at 4.5 billion. We don't have to kill people, we just have to postpone the births a little bit. And because human race is not any great danger, it is not necessary everybody must have children. There is no such compulsion. People can choose. Unless we can bring forth an offspring which is little better than us, I think we have no business to bring another life into the planet. Because this is an important part of this. Tree planting is fine, it has to be done right now, but I'm telling you, we are only postponing the disaster. If you're really concerned about this, we have to see how to reduce the human footprint. And if we don't do it, if we don't do it consciously, the planet will do it to us in horrible ways. Anyway, it'll happen, but if we do it consciously, it'll be wonderful. Otherwise, it'll happen in terrible ways. In so many different ways, it's going to happen. Anyway, planet will bring down human population after some time, but we need not wait for that. Being human means that we can act consciously. This is the most important aspect of being human. Whatever it is, whether we do right things or wrong things, we are capable of doing things consciously. If we bring this awareness to our life, that life upon this planet is such that everything that happens is interdependent and it's connected. The life of a worm and our lives are deeply, deeply connected. Today, modern scientists are saying that if all the insects disappear today, for example, all life on this planet will disappear in about 7 to 8 years' time, including human beings. Everything, trees, everything will vanish in 7 to 8 years' time. If all the worms die today, we will have only 2 to 2.5 years' time. Everything that we know as life will vanish if the worms disappear. So I don't know in French if you… is it a derogatory term to call somebody a worm? It's derogatory? When you want to abuse somebody, you say you're a worm?
It's great.
Huh? It's great, that's what I'm trying to tell you. So, if trees disappear, worms disappear, insects disappear, planet will end in many ways. But if you and me disappear, it'll flourish. We need to know this, that we are in many ways the cream of life on this planet, but we are not behaving like the cream of life. In many ways, we are the most intelligent species on the planet, but we are not exhibiting that intelligence in the way we're existing. It is time we show that we are the most intelligent species on the planet by the way we live, not by the way we talk. I would like to once again thank Yves Rocher and all of you for making this happen. If there are questions I could take, thank you.